So
We're like, okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Calling the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority meeting of Thursday, March 12th to order. Good evening, authority members. Good evening, staff. I'll have Ms. Henderson call the roll.
Chair Randall. Mayor Davis Younger,
Present.
Chairman McKay,
There he is. You just missed the gavel.
Chairman McKay.
Chairman McKay,
Thank you. Okay.
McKay,
Aaron and McKay, are you here?
I am here.
Awesome.
Chair Jefferson. Present. Board Member Karen Tonis.
Here.
Mayor Gaskins. Here. Councilmember Snyder,
Here virtually.
Mayor Mensing. Mayor Reed. Here. Senator Boysko. Delegate Delaney. Delegate Sewell. Mr. Harity,
Here.
Mr. Gribben,
Here.
Mayor Burke. Mr. Cutler,
Here.
Mr. Five.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening again, everyone. Thank you for sliding in, Mr. McKay. Appreciate you.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
I was texting Phyllis, telling her I might be a minute late.
Like, okay.
Or not. She's like, nice to know.
Thank you so much.
Until they realize.
I am Vice Chair Michelle Davis Younger, and I'm going to try my best to fill the shoes of Chair Randall this evening and keep the meeting. My goal was an hour. Chef McKay, thank you for being late. But anyway, first item we have on their action items is item 3, the approval of the February 12th, 2026 meeting summary minutes. I will make the motion to approve those. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I got a lot of seconds. Seconded by Chair Jefferson. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Abstentions.
I'll abstain.
Abstentions.
I'll abstain. I wasn't here.
One abstention. Thank you so much for that. Moving forward to item 4, approval of May 14th, 2026 as the public hearing date for the FY 2026 to 2031 6-year program. SYP, Ms. Backman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are rapidly approaching the public comment period for the FY 2026 to 2031 6-year program. Just as a reminder, we do our 6-year program on a 2-year cycle. We do alternate with the Commonwealth Smart Scale program, which is also on a 2-year cycle. We have been in contact and have been talking to the project sponsors about their projects and how they scored. All of that is in your packet. But just as a refresher, we did a call for projects on May 1st last year, and the deadline for applications was August 1st of last year, and the deadline for resolutions of support was October 31st. Since that time, we have 27 eligible candidate projects for funding consideration, requesting just shy of $1.3 billion. Included in your packet tonight is the candidate project list, the map of the project locations, the summary of project evaluations, and of course, the congestion reduction relative to cost rating, which we are required to produce, the transaction rating, and a 2-page summary of each of the 27 candidate projects. I will note that we are proposing that the public comment period begins on April 2nd and ends on May the 17th, with the public hearing being on May 14th, which is your the evening of your May Authority meeting. And looking at the other scheduled milestones, June 11th, at your June meeting, June 11th, we will provide a briefing on the public comments received. And during the June cycle, we will brief the authorities committees, your technical advisory committee, your planning coordination advisory committee, and your planning and programming committee, which is the committee which would bring forth the recommendation to the authority for program adoption. We are looking at program adoption at your July 9th meeting. In the interim, the finance team have been working on estimates that we think we will have to populate this funding program. As I have said at previous meetings, I can tell you what we will not have. We will not have $1.3 billion. But we are asking your approval for Thursday, May 14th as the public hearing date.
Thank you, Ms. Beckman. Any questions? Comments? Yes. Motion to approve.
Chairman, did you move approval of that? If not, I was gonna move.
Oh, no, no, go ahead.
Okay, if you did, I just want to make
No,
sure, we move approval of the May 14th, 2026 as the public hearing date for the FY 2026 to 31 6-year program.
It's been moved by Chairman McKay, seconded by Board Member Karatonis to approve the May 14, 2026 public hearing date. Any discussion in the motion? Hearing, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Moving on to item 5, approval of FY 2032 CMAQ RSTP funding recommendations to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Ms. Byers here for that. Thank you.
Yes, hello, good evening, members of the authority. Today, I am before you to seek your recommendation of our proposed allocations for FY 2032 Federal Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, or CMAQ, and Regional Surface Transportation Program, RSTP, funds. The total recommended for the FY 2032 out year funds between the two programs is approximately equal to $98 million. Details of the estimated funding amounts and of the proposed allocations have been included in your meeting packet this evening. And as a reminder, we are seeking authority recommendation of the proposed allocations, which will then go to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for final approval. The CTB will include these in the Commonwealth's 6-year improvement program, which is anticipated to be approved at their June meeting.
Thank you so much for that. Any questions? Is there a motion? Okay.
Second.
Hear the motion by Mayor Gaskin, seconded by Mayor Mensing to approve the FY 2032 RSTP funding recommendations to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Any discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Item 6, still Ms. Byers' show.
Yes. I'm here about an RSTP transfer this time. The city of Alexandria is requesting a transfer of $942,000, 186 of RSTP funds for the safety and capacity enhancements project. These funds would be donated from 5 completed projects for remainder balances, so they would not be impacted by this transfer. And it would help to cover a funding deficit in the recipient project and would allow continuation of final design and cost management for the intersection redesign of Duke Street and West Taylor Run Parkway, which has been identified by the city's Vision Zero program.
Madam Chair. Well, first, let me just say to the authority, I hope that you will vote in favor of this project. It's been a very important project for our city that, as Ms. Byers said, was identified through our Vision Zero program and is one that we have actively been trying to move forward as part of our larger vision for the Duke Street Transitway. So with that, Madam Chair, I would move the authority approval to recommend the reallocation of $492,186 cumulative regional surface transportation program funds from UPCs 82841, 103560, 100492, 103560, and 100420 to UPC 115531 for the city of Alexandria.
So moved. My second.
We have the motion by Mayor Gaskins from Alexandria, seconded by Chair Jefferson to approve the recommendation to reallocate regional surface transportation program funds for city of Alexandria. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That moves us forward. Thank you for that. Item 7 is Backman. You got that? For the approval of letter of endorsement for Virginia Regional Express VRE application to the US DOT's Build Grant Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. VRE is requesting authority endorsement for their bill grant application for their LaFont Station and Fourth Track Improvements Project. The project will construct approximately 0.7 miles of fourth track through and around the LaFont Station in Washington, D.C., and extend widen platforms to accommodate longer trains and simultaneous boarding, and modify the LaFont interlocking to support expanded capacity. I did want to note that this project is part of the Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative and the Long Bridge program.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve that. If that's okay. Is there a second?
Okay.
Oh, you, okay. Well, either one of you. So I made the motion and Mr. Ribbon has made the second to approve the letter of endorsement for VRE. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none on that motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, thank you so much for that. That moves forward. Item 8, adoption of the FY 2027 local distribution fund budget. And we have Councilmember Snyder, but I see Mr. Longy has come to the table. So are you going, or Mr. Snyder, going to bounce off each other? Hello, sir.
Sure, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yep.
Great. Maybe can we go through the formalities of allowing me to join the meeting virtually? I'm not sure we did that.
Oh, do we? I didn't hear what he said.
He wants to join the meeting. Do we have to have a?
Oh, we have to have a vote. Oh.
Yeah.
I forgot to do that. Sorry.
So we are to have a quorum, and then you have to
Oh, okay.
approve
So I need a
virtual
motion.
participation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Virtual.
Okay, so I can make the motion to allow Mr. Snyder to participate
And Mr.
virtually.
Fox.
I'm sorry, oh, and Mr. Fogg to participate virtually. Thank you, Mr. Snyder, for that reminder. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Chair
And-
Jefferson to allow virtual
And there's
participation.
that I'm at a Duke Law School seminar in Durham, North Carolina. Thanks.
We have that noted, that it's distance.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, now we can move forward. Hello, Mr.
Thank
Snyder.
you, Madam
Welcome.
Chair. So recognize Michael Longy to give a summary on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Longy.
Thank you. To start off with like an overview, all three of these budgets have been reviewed over several months by the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee did vote unanimously to move them forward with a recommendation to the full authority for adoption. I also want to note, since we break up the budgets into 3 budgets, the authority is anticipating receiving $480 million for fiscal 27. That will end up being $336 million in the Regional Revenue Fund and $144 million in the 30% distributions. Those are the revenues that come from the 4 sources: the sales tax, the IOEP, grantor's tax, and the $20 million transfer. And I'll go into some details now as well. Up there is the 30% distribution budget. It has a 0 carry forward because our goal, and the goal for all of your jurisdictions, is that we distribute all of the money every year. And we have been successful in doing that. The only thing that would keep us from being able to do that would be if a jurisdiction does not successfully complete its annual recertification. We work very closely with the jurisdictions to make sure that it happens. We don't play a gotcha game with this. So we are anticipating, you can see the revenue amounts for the 4 major revenues are at 30% of the total estimate. The total that we anticipate to distribute is $144.9 million. And that will be successful. And so there will be no ending budget balance. And that is a sure sign of success from our perspective. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this budget. It is the easiest one you'll be looking at tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Longy on this item? Okay, if not, Mr. Snyder, you want to? I'm sorry, Jeff, you have a question?
I'm good. I'm good. I was gonna make a motion, but if Mr. Snyder wants to, I'm open to that as well.
Just figured he would, but
Thanks. I'd like to move that the local distribution budget be approved as submitted.
and I'm happy to chair that
Okay.
or second that.
It's been moved by Mr. Snyder and seconded by Chair McKay to approve the 2027 local distribution fund budget as presented. Any discussion on the motion?
Only very briefly, Madam Chair. So there is an addition of a communication position, which it's very smartly funded, et
That's
cetera.
fine.
That's very nice.
That's the next.
Oh, that's next.
That would be in the operating
Yeah,
budget.
Right.
My mistake.
Yeah.
You're ready.
Any, we know what's coming.
There's gonna be questions on the next.
Thank you very much.
So I vote
Okay.
yes.
So, any discussion on that motion? Okay, if not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you so much for that. Moving forward, item 9, Mr. Longy, Mr. Snyder.
And
Go ahead, Michael.
get more marginally complicated on this one because the Regional Revenue Fund budget, when I mentioned that 336 million that we're gonna receive in fiscal 27, it's important to note, you've essentially already planned out that money. It all has a project on it already. So when we deal with the Regional Revenue Fund budget, what we're actually doing is recognizing those projects that have been approved for funding earlier than 27. And we have 2 projects that are asking forward appropriations because they feel they can speed up their process. But this is really the formalization of project decisions that were made years earlier. Going through the details on it, again, we have the 4 taxes, which are there at 70% of the revenue estimate. I do want to kind of, as a side note, and we've discussed this somewhat tangentially at the Finance Committee, but I think it really shows up here. If you look at the difference between the 26 and 27 estimates for sales tax is growing at a fairly decent rate. The IOEP barely growing at all. Grantors is also likewise barely growing, but grantors will bounce around a lot from year to year. And then we have that $20 million transfer. That $20 million transfer was actually put in place in fiscal 20. That $20 million is no longer worth $20 million. You can only buy $14,800,000 worth of stuff in 2027 with that $20 million. So when you do a split between 30 and 70, the buying power of that $14 million in 2026 terms or 2027 terms is actually only $10,360,000. Not an amount to, sneeze at, but I bring this up because as Ms. Baynard had mentioned to GPC, you've had these discussions yourselves, as the Commonwealth's tax system matures and changes to address changing economics, it's very important that the authority still gets the basis that it was originally designed for in House Bill 2313. And that's the reason I'm bringing this up. 3 of our revenue sources are essentially not growing. One is actually losing buying power every year, the $20 million transfer. So I just wanted to note that as a side note. I do also want to note that the investment portfolio earnings at $70 million is a really good return on investment for the authority because it's essentially almost all of Deb's time and less and less of mine as she builds her skills. But I also want to note that all of this money is assigned to projects already. What you see in the middle of the budget is simply the projects that have told us they're ready for a fiscal 27 appropriation. So working through the normal expenditures, we have the debt service, principal and interest. The next line is modeling licenses. Things that we do that are region-wide, such as modeling, we charge it to the Regional Revenue Fund. We are asking for, in that 298,000, we are asking for 250,000 that will give us project sponsor dashboards. As we've talked to your staff, and we've communicated, especially in the realm of project delivery, we've looked at things that we need to communicate on. Some of these things are not necessarily what we want to publicize to the broader community because we're working through an issue. We may have a reimbursement, I'm sorry, that, we want your staff to know is hung up somewhere. As we get more and more projects, we need the jurisdiction staff to be a little bit more independent in being able to monitor the progress of their projects through this dashboard, while at the same time fixing problems so that they don't become long-term problems. So that is what that investment is going to do, further improvements to PIMS, which has the support of RJAC and has the support of the jurisdictional staff. The next item in there that you see is the recommended project appropriations request. So we ask project sponsors, let us know what appropriations you want, what money that you already have approved that you can start using in fiscal 27. I'm happy to say that all requests are being recommended. To go through those, the City of Alexandria is looking at $75 million for Alexandria Peak Street Transitway. City of Fairfax, Blenheim Boulevard multimodal improvements for $8 million. Fairfax County has 2, Soapstone Drive for $15 million, Seven Corners Ring Road for $4.2 million. Prince William County has one, what we call regular appropriation for $25 million for Old Bridge Road, and also has 2 forward appropriations. This is where we are recognizing have a lot of a cash balance, and we do a lot of work with the auditors to make sure that you don't over appropriate. But we are comfortable recommending these 2 appropriations for $10 million each for Route 234 and Triangle Mobility Hub. So a lot of what the structure of this budget is to allow us to do these forward appropriations. It is so much better for this money to get used earlier in the region rather than sitting in our investment account and basically, being used by New York as the finance world in New York, not the city, obviously. So with that, the next stage is net revenue restricted for 2020, 2027 6-year program commitments. We need this line to make sure everything balances out and to track those forward appropriations. That $254 million is money that will cycle through in appropriation at some point. We have the transfer out to the operating fund, which is basically how we pay the operating budget. Prior to a legislative change that allowed us to make this transfer, we used to charge this budget based on population to the member jurisdictions. Update forward appropriations, that $133 million will cycle into the 3031 revenue and PAYGO estimates so that it'll be part of the funds that I think July, when, as Ms. Backman had said, when you make decisions on those project applications, that's where you'll use that $133 million. We also have 2 reserves, a working capital reserve, which was originally established because the Commonwealth appeared it might be late in passing a budget. And just to make sure we can make our debt service payments and keep operations and project reimbursements going. And then we have a debt service reserve, which is required by our bond documents. With that, I'd be pleased to respond to any questions.
For me, just one question, and I know you said, and I was scribbling it down on the modeling license and PIMS. It's of the 298, you said 250,000 is for the project dashboard.
And we're going to split that over 2 years because the work will take over 2 years. So we will probably be back in 28 with maybe the same amount as a request. We'll note that amount, obviously, as we wrap up the work in fiscal 27.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. McKay?
Yeah, on project F and G that you highlighted, they're in Prince William County. Chair Jefferson may know the answer to this, but the ones that are being accelerated, which is great, that project timing, can be accelerated on these 2 projects. I'm just wondering what's happened with those 2 that allows the project timing to be accelerated. And I think this comes from, jurisdictions that are challenged somehow getting these projects accelerated? Is there something particular about both of those that allows them to be accelerated?
I think for the Route 234 one, Prince William County is doing a lot of work on that corridor. I think they're already mobilized for it. And so they're basically looking at, let's move it ahead so that we don't demobilize and remobilize. The county has, and I shouldn't kind of speaking for Chair Jefferson, but
Go ahead.
Message Jeff.
There's some elaborate a little bit on that.
They're just awesome.
the county has done a wonderful job of moving their projects on 234 around to kind of sequence them on a project management and construction basis versus when the applications were queued up and approved.
And does that generate savings in those projects or not necessarily?
It will reduce costs because you're spending earlier. And again, the mobilization, it depends on if the mobilization and demobilization was in their original estimates, and we don't get into to that level of detail.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I will note on Chair McKay's question, forward appropriated projects usually come in on time and at budget or less. They have good track records.
Yeah.
Chair Jefferson.
I was going to say, this isn't the only projects that we've brought before NVTA that we have been able to accelerate. And that's something that our team has been very mindful of. When we can complete a project ahead of time, we strive. And we also have a history of leveraging other funds and applying for grants and making sure that we can speed up on the projects that we have. So in short, we are awesome.
Re-advertisement.
That's right. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Snyder, did you want to make that motion to approve item 9?
Yes, I'd like to approve item 9, revenue 70% regional funds budget.
Second.
A motion by Member Schneider and seconded by Chair Jefferson to approve adoption of FY 2027 Regional Revenue Fund budget. Any discussion, questions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? No, okay, that motion carries. Moves us forward to item 10, adoption of the FY 2027 operating fund budget. Mr. Longy, take us through that.
As we have done in prior years, we basically take two perspectives on the operating budget. The first perspective is inflationary increase, contractually obligated increases to the base budget. Some highlights on that, and there aren't too many, is first and foremost, we are projecting a 5% growth in the salaries budget line. And there is often a lot of confusion about this. That does not mean a 5% increase for an individual staff person. We do that based on their performance reviews and merits. This is the growth in the budget line. And I point this out because if you look at a larger jurisdiction, and everybody in this room is larger than us, a 3% increase in the budget line could actually mean employees get a 5% increase. Because you have positions that are vacant at a scale far beyond us. You have employees that are topped out in scale. You have different pay classifications, et cetera, et cetera. So what we do is we budget a budget number. And then when the region has passed its budgets, we go back and look and see what are the merit and cost increases, or I'm sorry, COLAs that the jurisdictions are giving out. We exclude things like changes in pay plans, because if you make a big change in a pay plan, that's not, kind of the scale. We also don't include, for example, classifications such as public safety, because for a variety of reasons. One is they tend to bounce around a lot, and none of us carry guns or badges, so we don't do that type of work. So we do that survey, and actually a big part of that survey is Arlington actually does a really good regional service survey that we and a lot of other people rely on, because the Arlington HR department does a very good job of breaking out, is this a COLA increase, is this a merit increase? because some jurisdictions blend them. Some jurisdictions may only give one a year. So we rely on that Arlington survey very dramatically. Another highlight here, moving down into the professional services, you see a big jump there in public outreach, regional event support, $21,000. That is an economic assessment that we do of the 2-year program. So we only do it every 2 years. Therefore, on that second year, which this is a second year, it looks like a big jump. Moving further down, web development and hosting, that $27,000. That is almost all carryover money for the change to the website. We're still wrapping up some of that work. So that's actually not new money this year. It's carryover from last year. Office lease, $28,980. When we took occupancy here, we were staged down, if you remember, on the second floor for a little while. When we were down there, we didn't have to pay rent. We didn't have to pay a lot of other fees. So this really reflects the first year of the full cost of the lease, which is why it's such a big jump. Those increases will be more normal in future years. With that, I'd be happy to respond to any questions on the base budget.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Long. Any questions?
This
Board Member
is,
Karatsonis?
first to state that, yes, we are observing very carefully because our budgets get tighter and tighter and tighter. And therefore, I can tell you that this is rather a year for our general employees now, excluded uniform services. It's rather closer to 3 rather than anything else. And that's still averaging, and with all the variabilities, etc. My question was, the initial one that I just compressed, I went too fast. So I find it intriguing, the communications insourcing. So what will be the scope there? What do we want to be more communicating about outside? I just applaud it, but I just want to know what exactly.
Well, that's our new initiatives budget. So
Okay.
we've jumped over to that. The communications insourcing, what we had found over the years with various contractors, mostly centered around transaction, that we had to keep coming back and filling in for the contractors. I think we manage those contractual responsibilities well. We've refused charges when our staff has had to step in and do an outsized level of work. But we keep coming back to these quality control issues that are over several different vendors, different contracts, different purposes. And I've basically come to the assumption, and this is really safe territory for me, I'm not an artist. And a big part of communication does have an art aspect to it. And we need to try to, the purpose of this is recognizing the hours that we end up putting into this anyway, and pulling those out of transaction. And instead of paying that differential between what you pay a contractor whose hourly rate has got profit, et cetera, overhead, et cetera in it, if we bring this in-house by cutting 660 hours out from transaction, we actually can afford this position, plus we get 1,200 hours of additional work. Now, what are we going to do with that 1,200 hours of additional work? I think is part of the question. Part of it is it allows our staff to focus on what was their original duties, because they didn't schedule all that time that they had to go in and correct contractors and do that type of work. The other thing that it allows us to do, especially with on the verge of a new transaction cycle, is improve our public outreach. We've already starting to exercise some ideas for the public engagement so that we don't just do the same thing hear from the same people, and then hear from different people once things go from 27 projects down to one project in one jurisdiction. And the residents near there start to take greater attention to it. A lot of that work is also done at the jurisdiction level before the project application gets to us, which we really appreciate. But I think we clearly have a role on it, as we've seen with a couple of projects over the last 5 years or so, where we need to keep that level of engagement up from the project application stage through to when the project starts to be implemented. And I'll let Ms. Backman.
And I'll just give the one-liner. Everything we do is built around communicating the taxpayer dollars and what we're doing with these taxpayer dollars. From transaction, which is our biggest funding program, so to speak, in our biggest initiative, because we can't fund anything without transaction. But as Mr. Longi noted, we want to reduce, ideally eliminate, but transaction is so huge, we will always need consultant support, but we want to reduce the consultants' reliance on the consultant support, because we're not getting the product that we're paying for, and it's costing the comms team, and I call them team, but it's not really a team, but it's costing the comm team to not only move from their oversight role, but now they're doing things that we were supposed to pay the consultants to do. But everything we do is about communicating what we're doing, not only internally, but externally. So transaction, the 6-year program, the Bus Rapid Transit Action Plan, everything. So when we post it on social media and all of that, it's not for likes, it's really to show everyone where these taxpayer dollars are going. And that is critical. It's about transparency, and that's job number one.
I would like to add an observation that transaction gets paid for from the regional revenue fund. The operating budget gets paid from the regional revenue fund. So you're essentially paying the same amount of money to get 1,200 more hours of work time.
Delegate Sewell, you have your hand up. Did you?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to talk about the importance of impact. And I actually commend the consideration of additional expansion to the comms team. I can tell you, coming from Richmond, this legislative session, a lot of the work that members of the Northern Virginia delegation are doing in Richmond is actually trying to tell the story of MBTA and the impact that they have. And as a result, due to the limited comms team that we have right now at the moment, we oftentimes find ourselves in a defensive posture versus being able to communicate our story as one in which others are trying to emulate. And while they are, oftentimes we're trying to defend why money is being taken away because people don't understand the true impact. So having an internal comms team, one that is very responsive and one that is very limber and agile and able to provide immediate prompt response and targeted messaging internally would be exceptionally helpful as we continue our great work in the region, but more importantly, as we continue to see our region grow and communicating that story across the Commonwealth.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Thank you. One thing that I was always perplexed in this United States of America is that public works are not properly signaled. I mean, not even signaled. Nobody knows. I mean, you see orange cones and you don't know who is doing what, how this is funded, etc. There are other places in the world, and including other states like California, for example, they make it compulsory to actually list the funders of the project, name the program that funds the project, and always the part of us we're working for the betterment of your roads, for the betterment of your commute, etc., etc. This is something that's very classic, and that works in the General Assembly because I guarantee you that a lot of our delegates see that and say, okay, oh, I saw that, right? So that's in their face. In addition to classic communications that puts nice brochures and explanations on their table. So thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions? I just want to add that nobody tells your story better than the people that have to do it every day. You're working it and you're making it work, and who better to put it out there than the folks inside? So it's better always to have stuff in our control and with our people than to have it outside, and we tell it the best way that we can. And it's always good with inside folks. So I appreciate it and applaud the effort for adding the additional person to the team. So whatever the team is. Any other questions or comments?
Chair Davis
Oh,
Younger,
yes,
if I
yes.
may.
Oh, yes.
And good evening, authority members. Let's see if we can get this a little bit closer to me. I just also wanted to add, and I appreciate all of the feedback that was just said about the importance of communications, but I think it's important for all of us to remember, as MVTA is the voice of the region, of all of the localities here in this room. So the 2.5 to 3 million people who reside in Northern Virginia, this communications team of 2 people here at MVTA is trying to get the word out about these. We have 27 projects right now in the 6-year program. Those are diverse projects across the entire Northern Virginia region. So we're trying to reach as many people as we can. And as you just said too, it's from the inside. We are the most passionate and the most able to tell our story.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that.
thank you.
I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Mr. McKay.
Yeah, I just, since I had some concerns about this last time, I'll just say that, it is a struggle to see growth in positions, especially when many of our jurisdictions are seeing reductions in positions. But I appreciate the time staff took to meet with me and walk through this whole scenario. And I do think this one makes sense, and I'm going to be supporting it. I also appreciate the work that's being done and looking at compensation increases and trying to keep them within the corridor of what jurisdictions are doing. And Mr. Carantonis brought this up earlier, but each one of our jurisdictions is a little bit different in what we can do and what our economy is doing and what we're doing in terms of growth or reduction in staff. But I do think it's important for us to be paying attention to that and to be watching that. And so I'm going to go along with this and support it. But I really do appreciate the work that the staff has done in laying this out and explaining exactly what this position will be doing and how it will benefit the authority and in particular, create savings in the area of investing in outside consulting and other things. And what Delegate Sewell said, I think, was probably the most powerful thing, which is many times we forget the work that's done in Richmond. And unfortunately, majority of the people in Richmond, especially outside of Northern Virginia, I don't think have any idea of what we're doing up here, not only with how we're using the money, but how these projects are growing Virginia's economy. And I think that's lost many times when you get downstate, that, if you don't keep Northern Virginia moving and keep our economy moving, that affects Virginia's economy. And so I think that was a really powerful comment. And I thank Delegate Sewell for that, but I will be supporting this.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Snyder, I'm sorry.
I'll make one comment, and this is about storytelling versus messaging, because people don't remember statistics, and yes, we're spending lots of money but people have to be able to remember and repeat what they hear. And that's the story of why we exist. It's the story of the impact we make in each of these jurisdictions. It's the story of how the region benefits because we all work together. And messaging is one thing. Storytelling is something else. And I think this is going to be the watchword of 2026, because we as a city are also trying to figure out how to better tell our story. And no one, to your point, can do that better than the people who live it, who have a passion for it, who come in every day and give 100% to making sure that what they do is working for everyone involved. And that is storytelling. And I can't imagine outsourcing that to a contractor. So I too will be supporting this.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Councilmember Snyder, did you want to make the motion to approve this item?
Yes, I want to improve and Michael Longi, the right terminology, the operating budget, including the personnel matters. Is that does that cover it?
Yeah, FY 2027 operating budget.
Right. I'd move approval.
there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have approved by Councilmember Snyder, seconded by Mayor Reed to approve the to adopt the FY 2027 operating fund budget. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Any opposition? Any abstention? I think that motion is
Thank you.
carried. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, that moves us forward. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and getting through those action items. Next on the agenda is the discussion information items. Item 11 is Ms. Baynard with the Governance and Personnel Committee report.
Good evening, Madam.
Ms.
Hi. Good evening, Chair Davis Younger and the rest of the authority. Good to see everybody. I am like Delegate Sewell, still in the capital city. I'm just going to get right to the point. All of your liaisons and staff are well aware of this, but frankly, NVTA has once again gotten caught up in finding ongoing sustainable funding for WMATA. As you know, the 4 bills that have been introduced to do various statewide and regional net new funding through taxes and fees were carried over to have more discussion. It became very evident at the beginning of the session that significant fee or tax increases were not going to happen. As all the jurisdictions and citizens are struggling with affordability and being to take care of themselves. But as advocates for transit, we continue to push the General Assembly to find at least some, 2-year temporary solutions for the things that we were asking for and advocating coming out of both DMV moves and SJ 28. The House proposed budget HB 30 listened and I think reflected that very strongly, where they identified $153 million in general fund money, which would be sustainable over 2 years to help with the WMATA operating subsidy assistance. The Senate took a very different path, and this is the challenge and what we have been talking about now for the past 3 weeks of trying to correct. The Senate path was to take proposed net new funding that would come from a change in a current economic development incentive, which would broaden the base for sales and use tax in Virginia within Planning District 8. It should mean that any purchases of eligible equipment that would now be taxed, those revenues from our 0.7% would be coming to NVTA to be split again, 30% to go back to the localities where it was raised, and the 70% would go in our regional fund. Instead, the Senate budget, subsection J of item 4-14 4S, decided to sweep that net new money, which over the biennium, they estimate is around 156.1 million, and sweep that into the WMATA Capital Fund. So that's one problem, that we are once again not getting money that we should be getting. Yet, I would get asked, well, is that existing money? No, but it is money that should be coming to NVTA. Nowhere in anybody's SJ 28 or DMV moves was there any recommendation that money should be coming from NVTA to support the new transit funding. The second very big thing that the Senate budget does is it sweeps all of the money from Planning District 8 into the WMATA Capital Fund. As you recall, there are 3 members of NVTA that are not members of the WMATA Compact: Prince William County, City of Manassas, and the City of Manassas Park. Those 3 jurisdictions are not part of the compact. And so the Senate has also created a legal problem of asking non-compact members to use revenue raised in their localities for WMATA. We have pointed that out. Delegate Sewell has been very helpful in helping me make contact with legislators. But right now, that has not been resolved. I will say that that is not going to be resolved by Saturday. The General Assembly has adopted the House Bill and Senate Bill 29, which tweaks and approves the remainder of the months of a current fiscal year. But right now, the House and the Senate conferees are unable to come to agreement on what the new biennium budget will be. And so there will not be a budget vote before Saturday, or on Saturday, I should say. And they will take some time to continue their discussions. As you know, we've been down this road before. There's several months now that they have to work on creating a new biennium budget and coming back sometime in the spring to vote on that. We are going to have to, as both localities and the authority, continue the education and advocacy to ensure that whatever their solution is regarding how much money they're going to have to work with, that we are not adversely impacted, and that, frankly, if I had my druthers, we would be completely out of it, and subsection J or anything like it would not exist. So so that's, that is the major big thing that we're battling out right now on behalf of NVTA, is to ensure the funds that we should get with any tax change that broadens the base sure that our 0.7%, that if it's applied, that we get those funds and they are not diverted elsewhere. That is, there's nothing else in either budget that impacts us, nor legislation. That is the one remaining thing that we are challenged with. And I will stop there, Madam Chair, to see if anybody has a question.
Thank you, Ms. Baynard. Any questions for Ms. Baynard? Okay, thank you. No questions.
Just to remind all, there was a previous proposed amendment for MVTA to do a follow-up or second ped bike funding study. That language did not make it into the Senate budget. So that's no longer anything that we have to think about at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Baynard, for the report. Okay. All right. That moves us forward to item 12, the Finance Committee report, and Councilmember Snyder, Mr. Longy.
Thanks. Thanks, Madam Chair. We've had a lot of Finance Committee issues already. Michael, is there anything here in particular, and you've all got the written information?
I would just note, thank you to the Finance Committee for the months of work they put into the 3 budgets. We will be presenting some revenue estimates to them in April. The revenue estimates is the start, the boring start, to get to what the PAYGO amount will be, which is what you get to apply to projects from the Regional Revenue Fund. I'll just recap. As your fiduciary, when news is good, it's easy to be brief. So I'll just note the port continues to exceed its projections. It was making the operating budget in 1 month plus $2 million. In December, it made the operating budget plus $3 million. Operating budget for the year. Overall revenue, we are down 0.5%. I think the snowstorm is going to exacerbate that, but I'm still hoping that we'll get a bit of a bounce back. But a 0.5% variance, we've got the ability to cover, even if that extends through the end of the fiscal year. On the operating budget level, we are 50% of the way through the fiscal year with accruals considered, and we've only expended 44% of the operating budget, so we're in good shape there. So for all 3 of those measures, we are in very good shape. I'd be happy to reply to any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right. Item 13 and 14 are both reports. Ms. Backman, you want to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there are the reports of the Technical Advisory Committee and the Planning Coordination Advisory Committee, which both committees met this past month. And they will be meeting because continue to meet, I should say, because we are discussing the 6-year program update with them and the potential recommendations that we are looking at. I will note and take this opportunity, since we're talking about the tech, the Technical Advisory Committee. That committee is a citizen advisory group of 9 people. The authority appoints 6, and then the secretary appoints 3. We have 2 vacancies. One is an MBTA vacancy and the other is a secretary vacancy. I have on my calendar to contact Secretary Donahue after session. I know this is such a low priority for him, but for us, because we are in the committee cycle, we have talked to your staff. If you know of anyone who's willing to serve, please let us know. But thank you for that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Backman on any of that? Mr. Gary Thomas.
Are there any, is there any document or any description that I can use?
So the law says that they are supposed to be technical experts in engineering, transportation, and you know, the skill sets that we use here, and that they live in the region.
Okay.
We also appreciate if they are not adverse to coming out to the meeting.
In person.
Yes.
With that.
Yeah, I see. We're burned.
We've had some retired off. But yeah.
We need some minimum passion, dedication, and professional courtesy. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay. All right, that moves us forward to item 15, CEO report, Ms. Backman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report is in the packet, so I won't touch upon everything, but there are a few things that I want to note. The Transportation Roundtable event is March 25th, and Madam Chair is providing remarks. I don't think we have a lot of RSVPs from the authority members, so if you would like to attend, please let us know. We would love to welcome you there. We are going to have a dynamic panel talking about automated vehicles, transportation technologies, and things of that nature. Again, 8:30 to 11 a.m. The other thing I will note, we have kicked off officially the update of transaction. At your meeting last month, you approved contract award to ICF, and actually earlier today, we had a kickoff meeting. There is a graphic on the screen because we talk about transaction as if everyone knows what it is. We talk about our 6-year program as if everyone knows what it is. But in looking around the room, we have a lot of authority members. You know, we've cycled through and we have a lot of new staff. You have a lot of new staff. The first thing I want to know, MBTA is multimodal. When we do the long-range transportation plan, which is a needs-based plan, meaning there are projects in DC and Maryland that we cannot fund. It is needs-based, but we are multimodal. The current BRT action plan, which you adopted in July, and I'm going out and I've been talking to the CAOs, and they've been very welcoming. I am trying to get on your agendas to come to your councils and governing bodies after budget session. To talk about BRT and next steps, but that BRT action plan was really born from transaction because it's needs-based. And this is the opportunity when we're doing the long-range transportation plan where we can see gaps in the network. When we do the call for projects or project solicitation for transaction, it's top down and bottom up. So localities and agencies submit projects. Now, to be truthful, we all know we have to have projects in transaction to be eligible for 70% funding. But then there's the higher approach where it's top down, where we can see gaps. One of the gaps we saw in the current transaction plan is like, we had localities saying, oh, I wish I had Metro if we could, or we have Metro, but if we could extend the line, well, we knew that wasn't feasible at this current time. Now, I'm not saying it will never happen, but we wanted to try to piggyback off of the 5 BRT routes we're currently funding. And then how can we make those connections to do a seamless transportation network with high capacity transit as well as the other modes? Because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, transit solves everything. We are multimodal. There's no one size fits all solution in Northern Virginia. So when we're talking about our storytelling, BRT, rail, roadway, yes, we fund roadway. Imagine that. Intersections, interchange, park and ride, technology, bike, pedestrian. We fund all modes. There is a caveat because I do have to tell people, we do not fund air travel. The code says, we don't fund air travel. The code says that our projects and the investments must benefit Northern Virginians. And of course, air travel, if you can fly around in the region. Anyway, but I wanted to make that connection because as we're going out talking about BRT, that's not the only initiative underway. When we're doing this current or this update to transaction, BRT is going to be a big part of it, but other aspects as well. But I wanted to know transaction, of course, it is the vehicle to funding, but it really does allow us to see where are the gaps in the transportation network. What areas or what corridors should we be looking at? What are the areas that are underserved in the region? How can we really invest? And then on the output, which is the 6-year programs, and I'm going to roll into Smart Scale in a minute, that's where we start putting money behind the projects that are in transaction to really get us to that seamless network. Now, the current transaction, I think it's $75 billion worth of projects. We don't have it. But we were never meant to fund everything. One of the things that I do not love is when MBTA is the sole funding entity for projects. It is no secret that we are not doing well in Smart Scale. It is something we've been working on. I am thankful that we have Mr. Gribben and Mr. Minshew as our CTB members having these conversations because, as was said previously, we're the economic engine of the Commonwealth. We should never be at the bottom, and I would say, or even the midpoint. We should always be in the top range of Smart Scale funding. One of the things I'm beginning to hear, or I shouldn't say beginning to hear, I've heard you have a transportation authority. MBTA can take care of all of it. We cannot. And the code isn't written for us to take care of everything. So having said that, and Madam Chair, I do want to transition back to my report, but I would, if I could, ask Mr. Gribben to speak to his meeting with Secretary Donahue about Smart Scale, and hopefully, because we are in the process of doing Smart Scale right now. I believe the pre-application portal is open. We at MBTA, we send an email out to the localities and agencies saying, hey, if you have a project that you would like MBTA to apply for on your behalf, because it frees up some application space, if you will, for the locality and agency, let us know. We've heard back from Prince William and Manassas for a joint application, but we're more than willing to do that. Thank you, Madam Chair, and if I could, turn it over to Mr. Gribben.
Thank you, Ms. Bachman. For those who I've not met, I'm DJ Gribben. I'm the Northern Virginia District Representative on the CTB, which is why I'm here, because the Northern District Representative is automatically also part of the NVTA. And in the past, we've talked a couple of times about Smart Scale, and it is one of the more opaque federal programs or government programs that I've come across. In my prior life, I was the Chief Counsel of Federal Highway Administration. I was General Counsel for US DOT, worked in the White House under the first Trump administration as a special assistant to the president. I've seen lots and lots of federal programs. This rivals one of the more complicated federal programs in terms of just complexity.
Sorry, Mr. Gribben, can I interrupt? Is your microphone on? I don't think-
It is. I
Oh,
have
okay,
it
just
close enough?
probably
Okay,
closer. Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
So do I need to repeat any of that or?
Go on.
Okay. But so I came onto the board, started to understand, work with Ms. Bachman, try to figure out what happened in the last round. So I'm gonna I try to condense this down to 3 slides. The first slide is the formula. So this is a formula I created. Does not exist. This is not formal Virginia. I just went through and tried to figure out, okay, how are we getting these scores? The second slide demonstrates that the formula, inside the formula is embedded other formulas. So, and I talked to Secretary Donahue about this. We are incredibly blessed to have him as a secretary. He helped create this program. He is one of the more capable heads of a DOT I've met anywhere in the nation. But as you can look at this, the point is in a visual to explain this is not helpful in terms of anyone in this room, myself included, to try to figure out what should we be proposing to score well under Smart Scale. And you can see the last slide is the result of this. This district in the first two rounds got about 40% state funding, which Ms. Bachman's point is probably right, if not a little low, right? We could say. Then the next two rounds were down in the 20s. The fifth round, we were at 7. And the last one, we hit bottom, 0. So the reason is because what's happening is other jurisdictions are figuring out how to advance programs under this complicated system. So the CTB is going to be discussing this next week and the week after. There is a desire to bring more transparency and accountability to this program. And I just want to give everyone a heads up because we are bumping up against a bit of a deadline and that the window is already open for pre-application. It's that the timing may shift on some of this with the new secretary, but the new secretary is very open. He agrees that Northern Virginia shouldn't be getting 0 under this.
Right.
And so I'm going to try to do 2 different things. One, be a liaison to this group, to the CTB and to the OIB staff that are responsible for managing this formula and determining what the scores are. And then secondly, I would really appreciate everyone just staying in communications in terms of what it is you're proposing from the Northern Virginia district, so I can make sure that eyes are on what's happening there. And to the extent that anything is likely to not score well, we would know that right away and have the ability to amend what it is we're asking for and move forward.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. McKay.
First, I want to thank Mr. Gribben for his work on this because, and I know we've talked about this before, and I also met with the secretary and he's very well aware of this problem to your point. And I think you're right. Other jurisdictions have learned about this, but one of the things that I pointed out to him, and your chart makes it abundantly clear, is I think that's right. But what happened in Richmond in particular last time? I mean, some of these other jurisdictions have stayed, still within the margins of likely what they should be achieving through this program. But what happened in Richmond and in effect, what has happened as a result of that to both Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia. So one of the things we talked about is, especially given the structure that exists in Richmond, one, we would hope we don't necessarily need a legislative fix to this, but 2, if we do need a legislative fix, what has been happening to Hampton Roads on this too is noteworthy. And so it is absolutely a Northern Virginia problem in terms of the dramatic effect that's happened here. But they're on the radar too. And I think that's a part of what's driving some of the problems is others have learned how to use the system. But there's other things that happen in Hampton Roads and that happen in Northern Virginia that are unique in terms of project costs and in terms of economic development that I don't think, job generation are not necessarily being counted properly. And so, it is still my hope that we can figure out something in working with the secretary that we could do that does not require a legislative fix. But if it does require a legislative fix, we're going to be thinking about what that fix is and who our partners in fixing that might be. And this is, very much a Hampton Roads problem as much as it is a Northern Virginia problem, which from a legislative strategy standpoint is probably a good thing right now. But who knows how long that lasts. But I really appreciate the work that's been done. And I think all of us should stay engaged on this because what is uniformly known from the secretary on down through the administration and even in the General Assembly is I don't think anyone expected Northern Virginia to ever end up with 0.
Right.
And I think everyone says that's a problem for the state because that tells everyone in the state something with the program is not working. So thank you.
You're welcome. And then the secretary does recognize that, and he has committed to working with us to make sure that Smart Scale operates the way it was intended to operate, which is to advance great projects, but do so in a way that's equitable across the Commonwealth.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McKay. Thank you, Mr. Gribben.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Lastly, I would like to close out my CEO report in introducing Ashkan. We talked about bringing modeling in-house, and oftentimes once we fund a project, we hear from project sponsors wanting to change the scope. And what he will do and what this does for us is help us not charge you to have the consultant run the model to see what the change in scope means. We are again trying to bring in some of those capabilities in-house. So Ashkan, welcome. I don't know where he lives though in the region just yet. I just know Chair Randall likes to know.
It looked like he said, it looked like he said Fairfax. So, yeah. Stacking the deck. Stacking the deck. Thank you, Ms. Backman. Okay. If nothing else, we'll move forward. I don't have any comments. Thank you for being lenient with me. I had fun. So filling in for Chair Randall. If nothing else, then we are.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
This is,
I'm so sorry. Yes.
Quite all right. This is Alan Fye, Deputy Director at DRPT. Just want to give a very brief update. I know folks are ready to get home tonight on a couple things in the transit world. So March is a Transit Operator Appreciation Month, and there are several events going on across the Commonwealth celebrating the great work that our transit operators do. They're on the front line every day providing really good service, and we want to celebrate them over the course of the month. We've had multiple applications for submissions for stellar transit operators from all across the Commonwealth. So we're excited to see how that goes. You'll see a lot of that on social media for the next couple of months. Also, one thing we wanted to report also is Fairfax Connector did really, really well at the state rodeo, and they will be representing the Commonwealth of Virginia at the APTA International Transit Rodeo in Salt Lake City later this year. So congratulations to our colleagues in Fairfax County at Fairfax Connector. We're having a great system, and we look forward to cheering them on out in Utah. A couple other administrative things. As you all know, we're working through the draft SIP program right now. The team at DRPT is reviewing all of the applications that your teams have sent in. Going through those, we'll reach out if we have questions on that, but we anticipate a draft SIP coming out in April, and then some different opportunities for public comment across the entire Commonwealth across May and June, and then with CTB adoption of the SIP in June. So just want to add a couple of things in there for the transit world, and thank you all for a couple of moments of your time this evening.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, if not, our next meeting is April 9th. See you all. Somebody else.
Councilmember Snyder has
Okay,
a-
Mr. Snyder. Yes, I have all these assistants tonight.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just before we adjourn, I was thinking back to Tracy Baynard's presentation, and I take it our position is that the state ought to be providing additional funds for Metro, and it should not come out of NVTA funds. That's my understanding. We're not opposing additional funds for Metro, but we're saying those funds ought to be new state funds and not be taken from funds that should be going to the NVTA. Is that my understanding of our position?
Our position is it should definitely not be coming from NVTA. As an organization who is a transit stakeholder, we were supportive of the bills that would have created new state and or regional funds and taxes or fees that had been vetted because we knew how much money we needed. As you know, capital funding is not really necessary until 2028 at the earliest, but there is a need for some operating subsidies help immediately as it comes to WMATA. But the first position is correct, sir. The money should not be coming out of NVTA because, as you've all talked about several times tonight, the region has important needs that have to be met, and particularly in light of the state not fulfilling its role in supporting our multimodal transportation system through smart cities.
I just wanted to clarify that we're in no way backing off from additional funding for Metro coming from the state, but rather that sort of taking it from one to give it to the other is not the way to go.
No.
Yeah.
Particularly because so many of you use your 30% to pay your transit subsidies, whether it's VRE or WMATA or OmniRide. It's just kind of weird.
Good. I just wanted that clarified. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any other comments or questions? I see no more hands. Okay. Thank you so much. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.